Hello and welcome to a Pint of Cthulhu Behind the Bar. Today we are interviewing the creators of Sisterhood. Myself, Jay, and yeah. I've already messed that up, but never mind. Say hello.
Hello there. Do you want us to formally introduce ourselves? Sorry,
Yes, please. Sorry.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Introduce yourselves and yeah.
Yeah, no worries. Hi, so I'm Charlie. So I'm the creative director over at Parable Games and the lead creator on Sisterhood.
Yep, I'm Adam. I'm one of the. Well, I am the other writer for Sisterhood.
Yeah.
The Nuns with Guns game. I can't wait to actually get into playing this at some point. Jay, do you want to ask the icebreaker question?
Sure, the question we ask every time. If a pint of Cthulhu was a drink, what do you think it would be?
Stout.
Ooh.
We've had stouts, we've had absinthe, we've had horrible
Fish
salmon.
vodka.
Yeah, salmon flavoured vodka.
Yeah. I've had a lobster bisque stout, and I feel like I don't drink anymore, and the lobster bisque stout might be a part of that. But I imagine it'd be something in that vein, like drinking salt water.
That sounds revolting.
Yeah.
Add it to the list.
I mean, fish vodka is one thing, but lobster stout.
Lobster bisque as well, so it was cloudy. It was yeah. You don't drink it twice.
Oh no. No, thank you.
Oh dear. And Charlie, yourself?
I think I'm just trying to think of like kind of the darkest, heaviest drink possible. Probably the heaviest porter you can find with about 3 shots of sailor's rum. Feels quite appropriate for
Sounds
Cthulhu.
dangerous.
But we when we were at university, Charlie, I don't know if you remember this, but there used to be a beer that was 70% in one of the local bars. It was called Tactical Nuclear Penguin. That was the vibe. Yeah, that was the vibe of what you just described. You could only order it in like a little shot of beer.
That's got some real Mountains of Madness vibes, doesn't it?
I have to Google that quickly. Hang on. Tactical penguin, nuclear penguin.
Tactical Nuclear Penguin.
Yeah,
I do not remember this drink. There may be a solid reason why I don't remember this drink by the sounds of it.
God. Is that it?
that very well could be it. Yeah, it was.
You know what
it
you
was
gotta
at
do,
a
Matt.
bar, with
Brewdog.
wooden seats and no pillows, and all of the furniture was lined with bad taxidermy.
Sounds about right for a nuclear penguin.
I can't tell if that would be a good time or a bad time.
You won't remember
both.
either way.
So enough about bad taxidermy in pubs. Tell us about your game.
Absolutely. So to kind of kick us off, I think Sisterhood is a game of hard-boiled nuns with guns in the 1950s, punching demons, rebel angels, 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and anyone else who wants to try and end the world. It is an absolute hell of a time, and if you've ever wanted to don a wimple, kind of wield your rosaries and revolver in equal measure and kick some ass in the name of the Lord, then this may be the game for you.
Sounds absolutely delightful, a real riot. Love when games like this go out. So what inspired you to create your own TTRPG and the theme? I'll say already that there's a show I've barely watched any of to my shame called, I think, Evil. It has a nun who can see demons and regularly attacks them with a fucking shovel and stuff. Yeah, you know the one.
She is an influence. For sure. I've watched the show Evil. She is a badass. There's a variety of things that inspired this, and I'm sure Adam will feed in here as well. But I'll start off with just some of a particular moment from my youth that kind of inspired me in terms of focusing on the characters of nuns. Although they're definitely very prescient in culture at the moment. Nuns are having a moment, fundamentally, I think. If you look at the amount of films, TV shows, Evil being like one of them, that they just seem to be everywhere, like more so than they have been kind of in recent years, and that's meant that they've been very much upon my mind. But when I was younger, I used to do a paper round, basically when I was growing up in Derbyshire, and I used to, near the end of my round, I used to deliver to a convent, and I have a kind of very distinct memory of knocking on the door, having a load, and they'd order like a load of different papers, because you'd have all these different papers, of various types. So they had the largest bundle, and the kind of door opened, and I had this tiny kind of little quite squat nun who was very, very friendly, or very like, oh yes, no, thank you for the papers, dear. You know, kind of the typical image you'd imagine of like, you know, quite a peaceful, like serene nun. However, looking deeper down into the corridor of the convent, there was another nun scrubbing the floor, swearing to herself under her breath. There was another growling a Sudoku or a crossword, kind of whilst lounging in a large armchair, and there was another leaning out the back of the patio door having a fag. So it's this thing of like, there was almost a cross section, just in that one little moment that's really stuck in my brain, as well as like various other nuns I've met, kind of after that, of that. Nuns aren't always what they appear, and they're not always what people expect, and that's something that I deeply enjoy. And the whole kind of idea of this game is nuns can blend in anywhere because people don't expect them to be packing a shotgun under the habit. And that's something that I really wanted to play around with from that memory, and also just that kind of imagery kind of the nuns. But Adam, do you have anything kind of on the media side? I mean, if you start getting us talking about what media inspired this, we will be here for a while. But I'm sure Adam's got some.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, unlike you, I've never actually met a real life nun, not a practicing one.
You met a reformed nun or two.
Yeah, I've met plenty of ex-nuns. My partner's from Kent, so quite a posh family compared to where I'm from, and her great aunt was a nun who left the convent to marry a Yorkshireman. So I owe her a great deal for setting the trend for my partner. but other than that, I've never really had, except for like some retired nuns. But for me, we were writing an adventure for Shiver, which is the first game Charlie developed, which was just so we could run different types of horror movie style games together every week without having to teach all of our mates a new system. Fundamentally was how it started, but we were doing an expansion for it, which we were always getting flack from the community for saying, well, a lot of your horror games your adventures are quite funny, or they have moments of levity in them, which we're from film school, so we were like, yeah, that's by design, and some people really don't like that. So Charlie kind of came to me very manic one day, and he was like, we're doing a paranormal expansion and everything is going to be terrible. Are you okay with that? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So we were doing an adventure which was an exorcism, and Charlie had these really cool mechanics for how the progression of the demon would take control of the NPC, and how the players would have to meet a kind of ticking time bomb for that. And it was a very tense kind of mechanical system that I then fleshed an adventure around to kind of show how other people can use the system for themselves. And it was set in a convent, and an ex-convent, again, always about former nuns. And there were these apparitions walking around, and the demon was a spider demon, and we had these like tendrils coming out from inside the wimple, like that there's a nothingness, and then the spider legs crawling out of this sort of nun shell. And if the players don't win that adventure, if they don't succeed by a certain point, a 13-year-old child dies. And it's a very bleak adventure, and there was a point where we were kind of editing it and going like, well, how do we make it worse? And at one point, Charlie just kind of was like, it'd be really good if nuns could just get a shotgun and sort it out. And I got really excited by this idea of like faith and fury, so that when Charlie was like, oh, we're doing Sisterhood, and I think I know what the combat system is going to be, I really got into the idea of it being quite noirish. I had this idea. I've been calling it Saint City, with a capital S, a capital I, and a capital N, and then what was it? The Spiritualists' Max Payne, which was the first thing I ever said when trying to sell it to someone. And I got really into this idea of like resolving problems, less horror movie and more noir. So that's very much where I've come at this from.
Sounds absolutely great. I cannot wait to try this out. I'm looking at the dice now, like probably gonna nab myself a set or two of those as well. So
No, you know you need to.
yeah, I need to. I've got to. Aside from the dice, I've also seen what's it called? The pentagram and cross little diagram there. And I'm curious, can you describe the kind of chord and outside game?
Absolutely,
different?
yeah. So in terms of kind of how our dice system works, so it's a dice assignment system. So you're starting arrays, you get a d6, 2 d8s, and d10, and you assign those to 4 major attributes, which are faith, cunning, fortitude, and empathy. In terms of that, it's mostly a flat check or roll against system where you're rolling against our GM, who's called the Mother Superior, and seeing if you can roll higher, and that determines kind of whether you're successful or not. The cross and pentagram is when we hit combat, and that's where Sisterhood has put quite a new twist on things. To be blunt, I was getting quite fatigued with running stuff in the grid-based system. I mean, and so I throw my hands up. It's like Shiver is a grid-based system in terms of like kind of its combat using like the kind of typical 5-foot grid, and I wanted something where I could, kick open the deconsecrated church doors, lay down my battle map like with my players, and start playing straight away. That's kind of to kind of get that punchy, hard-boiled feeling that the tone of the game was bringing. I needed a combat system to match. So the kind of cross system that you're seeing opposite that pentagram, we call it the Way of the Cross. So in terms of the world, this is how the sisters from the Sisterhood are trained. This is how they see every battle that they enter. They are deployed kind of onto the cross. This is where they're strongest. This is where they're most safe. This is where they can work together more easily. Whilst the enemies are deploying kind of on the pentagram, where they are more powerful and they are potentially trying to perform a ritual of some kind. So what it kind of starts, because since we're in the 1950s and it's just post World War II, you get this really interesting like back and forth that feels like a very quick, punchy, brutal firefight with nuns diving between different sections of the map, popping off shots, trying to shunt people into kind of different sections. Because having those limited sections on the cross and the pentagram means that it becomes a much more tactical affair. It's a mixture of kind of a skirmish, a small model count skirmish battle game with a bit of chess, and a whole load of diving around with guns, which is a hell of a time. So it's something quite different, and I think it's kind of once you get over that kind of conceptual hurdle with it, we're finding that it eliminates setup time, because it is how the nuns see the battlefield. That one map can be a ruined church, an abandoned trench system, a infested kind of idyllic French town that a cult has taken over. Wherever the battle takes place, that's what that battlefield becomes. So you get this wonderful mix we're finding through the playtesting of that when players move around in those limited sections. So for example, say we're in a ruined church and they try and move into hidden and the player's successful. They could say, okay, right, yeah, I duck down and I start running along behind some pillars, staying out of sight and in the shadows. We don't actually have, terrain that we've spent, half an hour setting up or a map we've drawn on Roll20. But the players are engaging with that theatre of the mind aspect with something that's very tactically grounded. So we kind of are getting that best of both worlds of fast-paced, kind of intricate tactical gameplay with the kind of colour of theatre of the mind that allows you to get set up and get playing pretty much immediately.
Oh, damn.
Nice.
Well, with that, can you walk us through character creation, what kind of nuns are we dealing with here? How many different nun variations are there?
Tons of nuns is what I'm going to say. So we start off with that dice array that I was talking about earlier, the d6, 2d8, d10, and they can kind of be shuffled around in any combination. What that will allow you to do kind of in the full game is, depending on what level of dice level you have in which ability, that opens up a selection of abilities that link to that attribute. So you then get to pick certain abilities depending on how strong you are there. So it's a completely classless game in that regard. It's all about picking and synergizing your abilities as a team. So the thing that we're finding when we're testing these different builds on the map is that there is a lot more communication when we're kind of getting the abilities to work together. So for example, one sister could, kick someone into another section, be fastball special shotgunned by another sister, and then finished off with, a flaming sword from Joan of Arc. And kind of what we tend to find happens with this kind of character building is that rather than the classical, I plan out my turn, I execute my turn, I don't really talk to anyone else about my turn, and then I pass over to the next player. In Sisterhood, cooperation is the game, like collaboration is the game, so everyone is talking about what they're doing, whilst their turns are kind of playing out, and sacrificing actions to jump in and help a sister out, throwing extra d4s, that kind of thing. So it's very much, you have that starting array that allows you to pick a series of abilities. You also get unique prayers, which kind of work like spells, in a way where you sacrifice larger amounts of actions to set a sword on fire, heal your fellow sisters, consecrate the ground, so demons really struggle to walk in a certain section of the map. So the prayers kind of tend to represent more powerful abilities. Your sister will also have a background, or what we're calling a past. So the whole idea here with Sisterhood conceptually is that in this kind of post-war period, it was a huge recruitment point kind of in the Catholic Church for nuns, as many people were displaced, and convents provided a sense of stability, shelter, kind of purpose for some. So a lot of people flocked there. So it was the most diverse and populous recruitment kind of into the Catholic Church that they'd seen in kind of thousands of years, basically. And that was a kind of a crux point of being, okay, this is where actually we're getting a huge amount of diversity here kind of amongst these nuns, and people are bringing interesting skills and backgrounds to this. So what happens when a ex-French resistance fighter is on the run from somebody and then decides to join the Sisterhood, whilst then you have the pious young sister who's potentially had a vision and decides that she needs to join the Sisterhood, or someone who was a frontline nurse, and now the war has ended, is looking for a way to kind of make sure that a war on the scale of ending the world isn't about to happen again, and joins the Sisterhood. And these bring extra abilities, but they also bring other extra dynamics and a whole load of character to your nuns as well, of like where you're coming from to join the Sisterhood too. So yes, you've got your dice array, your background, you select your abilities, and as you level up through this, your dice improve, you can select more prayers, select more abilities as you grow and kind of modify your sister. So it's very adaptable as you're kind of doing your character creation, because you're not locked in to a set class. If you decide to take a lower level ability, say you've got a d6 in empathy, for example, there will still be some abilities there that you can grab that actually on a roleplay front, even though your sister's all about sneaking around, maybe picking locks and like assassinating people. They may want some kind of charm to add to kind of their cunning and guile, so may want to balance that out, and that option's always going to be there as long as your dice size is right. So you're going to have massive amounts of options and combinations that you can do.
That sounds really good, actually. Yeah, it's unusual, but seems like it would work well. What?
Anything to add, Andy?
Oh.
You've been sat there very quietly, patiently.
Charlie and I, it's Adam, by the way. Charlie and I have, I've been called worse. Charlie and I have worked together for about 10 years, I think, informally and as friends and as like screenwriters and everything. And I'm very used to just letting him do all the talking.
Yes, I'm sorry if I am rambling. Please feel free to cut me off. It's yeah. I can talk for an obscene amount of time sometimes. So
I think a big part of the development of this was all of the mechanical systems. Even though we've been playtesting and closed group playtesters have had input, and other members of the team have kind of put a bit of shine on it in certain ways. Fundamentally, all of it was devised by Charlie in some way, shape or form. So the skill allocation was the first thing, and combat originally was going to be we were looking at, I remember you talking about like war game mini skirmish things, and then you just basically rang me one day and you were having this sort of panic attack where you were trying to describe a multi-angled cross to me on the phone. And this, all of it kind of comes down to that. So when Charlie kind of gets the ball rolling and starts talking about these things mechanically, you will get the full system explained to you in sort of a 5 minutes or less scenario. So it's a real joy to watch, actually, to be fair.
We love a good game writing ramble. So what challenges did you face when you were developing the game?
Ooh, so I would say, as Adam's already said, I nearly lost my mind trying to figure out the combat system, because there were so many points, I think, in development where I was like, is it just Theatre of the Mind? I was like trying to dodge around kind of a grid-based system. I kind of went down that road of being like, should it just be that? And kind of be like everything else. But then it was very much I was doodling other things and then kind of saw the shape and saw the pattern. And then that kind of come in, but it took a long time of fiddling and rolling and muttering and basically playing the game against myself for a while until I kind of landed on that. I'd say in terms of other challenges is in terms of like kind of like thinking about the representation of the nuns themselves. I mean, I think Adam can speak to this because it's something me and him have talked about a lot, but with the kind of more hard-boiled nuns with guns element, there's that, obviously there is that link to the 70s era of like nunsploitation cinema, which, with shotgun wielding nuns, really, really fun. Hypersexualization of nuns, not fun. Something we desperately wanted to avoid, and kind of wanted to basically have the nuns feel like, your Humphrey Bogart, Sam Spade hard-boiled detective, or your Max Payne, but not have this kind of extra baggage that was kind of coming from there. So we very much only took the like kind of badass violence side of it, and then very much in terms of how we were briefing the artwork, there was a kind of a thing with Ben when we were talking about like character body types, like how we actually approach drawing nuns, is that there's a vast array of ages, making sure people actually look realistic, they actually feel like kind of real women, real nuns, kind of like going through a lot of like archival photography.
We have
as
a Pinterest board that is just hundreds of photos, I forget the word, just kind of photos of nuns when they're not paying attention. Casual nun photographs. Throughout the years.
Yeah.
So, like,
the tasteful casual nun.
Candid, nun candids.
Candids, exactly. Yeah. That's
I do
it,
love the nun with the gas mask, the scarred up elderly nun with the cigarette in her mouth, that kind of thing. Puffle of birds.
I think the cigar nun was one of the earliest ones we kind of got Ben to concept out, because I think that was the game in a nutshell.
Yeah, well, because like the concept image that I first pitched Sisterhood to the rest of the team is what the front cover is now for the core rulebook. Is I did a charcoaly drawing of a nun praying with knuckle dusters, smoking a cigarette, with the smoke coiling through, and then Ben took that and he's made it vastly better than the drawing I did, and added loads of extra details and kind of little Frank Millerisms and kind of Sin Cityisms. But you're right, as you're saying, it's like tough old birds, I think is a great phrase to kind of describe it, because I remember having a conversation with Ben of being kind of, when he drew kind of like one of nuns, I was like, no, she can be squatter, broader, more wrinkly. She can look older. Like she can be 60 and have knuckle dusters. It's we really wanted to kind of have this feeling of that there being a real broad scope of women being in the sisterhood, and also people who just feel real and aren't that. It's kind of silly, kind of throwaway, like sexy nun archetype, which is what we desperately wanted to avoid. We wanted it to feel like you are the badass heroes of an action movie, and you should be treated and represented as such.
Yeah. They've lived. I think every single one of the nuns in our artwork has lived a tough life to get where they are now.
Yeah.
And it representing that, and also the other thing about nunsploitation is it's you don't. We did not want to actively discredit anyone's faith, and that includes people of the Catholic faith. It includes people who might have issues. We've had this actually from a response in America with people who grew up and have lifelong problems with the Catholic Church because of probably being raised in Catholic schools, things like that. Who have really got to grips with the Sisterhood Quick Start, and this is kind of rehabilitating them back towards the idea of positive relationships with Catholic imagery and stuff, which has been really nice. So we never wanted to kind of discredit anyone on either side of that aisle. So it's been a very fine line, I think, to walk, for sure.
Fair. I mean, that does sound quite difficult. You don't want to piss off either side. You want both sides to enjoy it.
You don't want actual ninja nuns coming after you with guns.
Absolutely. And one of our friends in America actually did suggest to us of that if we could get a group of nuns to sit down and do a live stream of playing Sisterhood.
That would be incredible.
It's my dream. Now, I desperately want it to happen. I might go back and knock on the door of the convent I used to deliver papers at and just have a quiet word. If they had a new housing estate being built around them, so I hope it survived. But I think that would be a peak dream for Sisterhood, is actually sitting down with some actual nuns and getting them to play the game.
I'm just imagining, was it Dimension 20? That has Brendan Lee Mulligan in it.
Yeah.
And you know how he's been doing like a drag season where he's in full drag makeup?
Yeah.
I'm imagining one of you with like a circle table of nuns in a nun habit running the game for them.
I literally have the nun costume behind me.
I really wish you didn't bring it up, actually. Please don't enable him.
Now we've got to see it.
Oh no! It's like in Scraps. No. So I dressed up as Valak for Halloween a couple of years ago. So I've got from the Nun series. So I've got it kicking about. But yes, no, I think that would to go full Mother Superior and run a game for some nuns would be absolutely incredible.
Oh yeah.
Oh dear. So it sounds more and more insane, but I love it. How did you go about balancing all of your mechanics in this game?
In terms of actually testing is what I would say. Whether that's me sat here basically playing two-player chess against myself, with kind of our kind of closed testing with people in there. But I mean, we're not really going short for gamers in the Nottinghamshire area who want to kind of jump on a fighty nun RPG game, as well as like testing internally in house, of just kind of rocking up to our regular game nights, and testing away. There is obviously a great deal that you can kind of do just by looking at the mathematics of it. Like that is certainly a thing, but there is nothing like putting something to the table, especially something where your moveset is complex but it's limited, because it's not like an open grid. That needs quite a lot of refinement, and so we've kind of been testing and playing around kind of with those abilities, making sure that it's always like finding the perfect balance of making sure your nun feels like an absolute badass but isn't just completely broken, that nothing feels challenging, like there isn't a threat. So yeah, it definitely falls more on the pulpy you are the heroes kind of side of things than the kind of very taught you might die in one hit kind of like Call of Cthulhu side of things. I think we definitely have shuffled more into like pulp Cthulhu kind of areas with kind of how we're approaching it. but your nuns are always still very much kind of at the threat of death. But yes, no, testing I would say is key.
It's been. I mean, the thing is, you did shiver, which in theory was being play tested for about 2 years, I would say.
Yeah.
While it was being kind of developed and then marketed and then before release, like we were play testing. I have my job because I was play testing that game non-stop, and we've since then it's been Shiver expansions, which are fine because the core mechanics haven't changed. But then we did a couple of solo games that we were developing, Ironheart and Don't Play This Game, which testing a solo game is really easy because you kind of just...
no, Don't Play This Game.
Oh, that's Charlie.
That's us too. Yeah.
Yes, no, Kimber would love to talk to you about that.
Yeah. Kimber does. Kimber is one of my special street agents. Big Don't Play This Game fan, mods in the community for me. Was very insistent that I come and meet you guys. But no, like testing Don't Play This Game, I think, Charlie, you were figuring out the maths. It was literally that, looking at the maths, making sure the dice roll progressed through the book, and then I did a playthrough, which was if I lock myself, because it's a go out and scavenge and build game, and it was like, if I lock myself in my office, can I play through this start to finish with only things I have around it? And the answer was yes. If you have a VHS tape of the Star Wars like special cuts, you can do a collage out of the smashed up film reels. But like that was, testing that we were kind of spoiled in a way. Even Ironheart, I don't think there was a rigorous testing process before we released a PDF that was like a quick start that was like, what do people think? Going back to a multiplayer game again, that was almost like where we ran into a wall, where we were going to release something for people to dabble with, and we were like, actually, should we give this a couple of rounds at the table? And it was almost immediately that first PlayStation you had after I'd written the starter adventure was like, oh, we need to fix something out.
Because this is definitely, for me as a designer, the crunchiest thing I would say. It's not a crunchy game. Like the crunch is not kind of front facing to the player, I would say. But in terms of like it echoing a lot more stuff to do with skirmish games in terms of how it works tactically, meant that it had much more to balance, that there was kind of a lot more kind of going on. That kind of like reducing that map down and refining it to its core elements meant that everything kind of had to make sure that it wasn't overly impacting like another area of that very condensed map. And so it was the kind of thing of that because the kind of grid system was such our bread and butter with Sif, and we tested it so kind of hard, we kind of were presented with a really interesting new challenge of that. Actually, we kind of we felt we were close with the quick start, but then definitely gave it another kind of like 2 weeks, like a month, like extra play testing, like adding in new abilities, changing up the nun builds. That was a big one, of basically like kind of testing out different abilities and trying to get it so in that quick start those 4 nuns are built in a way that shows you how they synergize off one another, was a big thing for me, because they tweaked around a lot. I mean, there's a pile of abilities that aren't in the quick start, like off to one side, that will be in the kind of core game. We only just selected a few to kind of go in to kind of show what I thought would be a very good vertical slice like combination of what a Sisterhood kind of like RPG crew could look like.
Nice. Are there any particular moments or stories from playtesting that you can share that were really memorable or special?
So I think one of the things that stands out in my memory on the roleplay side in particular was in our like one of our groups we have you won't mind me mentioning his name, we have a friend called Keith. Now Keith is not particularly the one who would get like as like too hard into his roleplay. I would find like he's played Chivalrous before and like various other RPGs, and we play other games as well, and he never like delves too hard into the roleplay. And I think one of the things that I was like concerned about was this thing is like this game makes you roleplay as nuns. Like there is no other option. You are a nun. Like there's no other character in that sphere. If you're not a nun and you're not in the Sisterhood, then you're not playing the game, fundamentally. So I wasn't too sure kind of how Keith would respond, like, in terms of this, but as soon as he picked up, I think it was Agatha, if I remember, that from the quick start, 60-year-old nun, slipped on the knuckle dusters. Instantly, as soon as the game starts, he mimes lighting up a cigar and just goes, "Well, what's all this business then?" And went full, like, British hard-boiled detective. And he knew it. The thing is like, he didn't know about the game before. We'd only given him the quick start then. We went through the rules, and he kind of got a rough idea of the tone. And it was the thing that he, from that, knew exactly what the tone was that we were going for, and felt comfortable and inspired to jump headlong into role-playing like that hard. Was a really, really nice, affirming moment for me, and kind of like a really nice memory from the testing process. Because it really kind of, I think, put the big green tick of it being like, okay, no, people are gonna feel good role-playing as these very specific characters. So that was a big one for me.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't get to the playtest very much these days because we're a slightly disparate team, so I'm far afield. The kind of the most reassuring thing I got was because this is a much smaller book, so it's how do you write an adventure for a quick start that's going to be 6 pages as opposed to like the average Shiver adventure, which is like between 16 and 30. A5 as well for Sisterhood. It's a very compact beast. And I don't want to spoil the quick start adventure because it goes to some places, but there's a third act surprise that is, it's not really even signposted. And I remember writing it and I was like, why have I done that? What will this? It's something very mechanical makes its appearance. And apparently the first time Charlie ran that, people were visibly shook. And very concerned about how they were going to deal with this problem, which was absolutely great for me because I was like, oh good, I've not gone mad. But yeah, I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but absolutely check out Quick Start for that.
So, what has been the best and worst part about making Sisterhood so far?
I think I'm going to tackle the worst part because ultimately I think a big thing is we are right. So I'm used to saying we're a small team with 4 people. We're now 5 people. So you start turning your nose up because we're becoming Hasbro clearly, but we're a very small team, and all of our operating income kind of comes from very good financial management from Charlie's brother Barney, and crowdfunding. So we are always in the process of developing expansions or new games, and there is a lot of juggling about what is going on and who is developing a lot and what is happening. The Sisterhood has fallen at a time when we are developing 3 separate Shiver products, technically 4 in a way, but some of that's already written, some of it isn't, and we've kind of been juggling that, and that was okay. But we're also working on Ironheart, which is our first sort of solo action RPG. We are fulfilling Don't Play This Game, which we pledged that we would deliver these boxes, which if you get the expansions for Don't Play This Game when you bought the original, there were limited edition boxes that had cursed artifacts in, and we had to do I was calling it like art camp or sweatshop, because we were taking all of these things that Charlie had run all over Nottingham, like children's toys, wooden horses, all of these tiny little things, and we were sandpapering them, scratching on them, making them cursed and horrible, putting them in a box. All the while we're talking about what we're going to do with the Sisterhood mechanics and whether or not the Quick Start's going to be able to go release the next week. And it's the real manicness kind of hit during Sisterhood, I think, where we had a meeting just today that should have been 10 minutes but ended up being an hour, because we're like, how do we realign what we're working on? I mean, Charlie, you went for a nice walk because you were prepped for one thing, and it's like, all right, well, I'll just completely change. I'm not just changing lanes, I'm changing vehicles, and I'm gonna figure out what I'm doing with this. That's the only thing. The actual project itself, great.
Yeah, it's kind of like at the point, like, kind of where Parable Games is at. I agree with Adam entirely. It's kind of it's worse. It's a worst moment in terms of it being a very exciting time for us. Where originally I think we were kind of just known for Shiver, and all of a sudden we are very much accelerating towards being like kind of multi-brand, like we're doing multiple different games and supporting different communities, which is amazing, and we get to see so many other kind of elements of the industry and meet lots of wonderful new people and new players. But it is a lot for a small team to adjust to, and we're kind of still in that adjustment period. I would say like one of the best things about Sisterhood is seeing those responses from new players who are coming in and seeing our stuff for the first time and encountering Sisterhood for the first time, of that, just the sheer amount of joy. I mean, I've just done aircon, and having a banner up with a nun with 2 revolvers on and an eye patch looking like a badass, and the amount of people just been like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I'm down for that. I've just been like, nuns with guns, absolutely. And just the sheer amount of people who are just like, it feels like they're finding their new game. Like, they're finding the thing that they feel they could be comfortable to run. They're like, I want to be a Mother Superior. I had a great interaction at Aircon where I won't name any names, but this lovely lady came up to us. She's been a player for years. She was the token woman in her 2nd edition D&D campaign, because they wanted a girl in the group, and she said she's just been kind of sick of that being the kind of thing. And with this, she was cackling to herself with her old group behind her, because she was being like, I'm going to be the Mother Superior, and I'm going to get you all to play nuns. You're all going to be women, and I'm going to have the best time in the world running this. And that just absolutely made my day, because for me, that was someone finding a game where they could run and find that joy in a way, kind of like being represented, but also kind of having a different experience that they're not seeing more, and a badass one where they could have that much fun. So I think, yeah, that for me has been the best moment, is seeing Sisterhood find its audience.
Yeah, that sounds incredible, man. We need to do at least a one-shot, possibly a season on this, because I'm picturing Nun Gertrude, man, and it is working out too well, man. You see it too.
For context, Gertrude is a character we've had in every season so far. She is the tankiest, cantankerous old woman possible, and yet is near and dear to pretty much all of our hearts.
And she gets played by a different member of the podcast each season, so all the guys have had their turn with Gertrude.
Oh, I loved it. Couldn't beat it.
And my favourite type of character to play, I will do it every time we get a one shot, is a weird old lady. Just a strange old woman.
I am also a fan of playing an utter stoop crone, as I call it. I'm just like, yes.
I think Matt might have, I don't know if Matt's been talking to you guys, he might have mentioned the game to you, was it Dance Macabre?
Dance Macabre.
Dance Macabre was a recent game we play tested, where I got to play a truly strange old lady. And
oh yes.
Oh yeah. Need another chance to. I might actually play her in other games now.
Yeah.
Might make her a nun.
Yeah.
God knows how God would ever look upon her.
Yeah.
But I might do it.
Yeah, but I think Sisterhood actively encourages you to kind of do full. I like how you sometimes get those like full barbarian playthroughs.
Yeah.
You kind of got full weird old lady playthroughs.
Yeah.
Which I think is Sisterhood's vibe to a T.
Oh, perfect for me then. So, you guys have obviously done a lot of work post-release for your other game. What are your plans for Sisterhood? Once it's released, once it's out, once it's fulfilled?
So I think it is taking it to cons, getting it played, starting to kind of like build up a community around it, like kind of even more, and just kind of seeing kind of what the community wants. I think it is my interest of being this obviously is Parker Pocketopia. We've kept it a relatively like tight release with the core rulebook and the 2 expansions. Just because kind of, you know, we're allowing you to kind of go out and punch all the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse and rebel angels and stop the world from ending doesn't mean there's necessarily other world-ending threats. Also, nunns have been around a while. Nunns may be here in the future. Who knows what other Sisterhood books or expansions or variants there could be, is what I will say. But that does all very much depend on kind of what people are after, and if Nunns with Guns is something that people feel is here to stay, then I absolutely will give people more Nunns with Guns, because it has been an absolute blast to design and write for. It is so much fun.
Sisterhood 2, more nuns, more guns.
More nuns, more nuns, more guns. You've got the tagline for our potential next bag kit already sorted.
There was definitely a conversation where originally it was going to be 1 book, and it was going to be, I think, a slightly thicker A5 book. And we did not know if the rest of the team would kind of greenlight us doing expansions to Sisterhood. We didn't know if people would like it enough to buy the first one. So I remember like very distinctly having a conversation with Charlie that was like, do we leave it on the court? Do we just do all 3 of the idea? Because it was going to be Sisterhood and then maybe an expansion with Horsemen, maybe this. And we were like, yeah, we'll just do all 3 books at once. We will tackle every version of the apocalypse we can think of right now. And there will always be more Cold War nuns, you know, Sisterhood
Wild
2077, Wild West nuns, yeah. Someone mentioned time traveling nuns and pirate nuns. I don't know,
hell yeah.
Maybe. Why not?
Somebody mentioned cyberpunk nuns to me as well, which I found immensely entertaining.
Yeah, that's the Sisterhood 2077. Why not?
Yeah.
Gonna have to ask, have you added in a nun-apocalypse with Cthulhu?
Ooh, so the Lovecraftian mythos is definitely something that we haven't touched with the books that we're currently doing. But, I mean, I can't really think of any more perfect selection of world-ending threats, so I think that could be... Definitely, if we wound the clock back a little bit in terms of our nuns, I think that could be a very interesting setting to explore. But this is the thing. I think, like with pretty much any of the games that we do, like if someone out there wants to hack Sisterhood apart and, you know, limit the gunplay to kind of whatever you could find in 1880 and run kind of nuns shoot Cthulhu whilst he's still dreaming, be my guest. Like, go for it. I want to see it. I will play it. It sounds amazing. Because I think it's kind of one of our kind of ethoses is that we like people to take what we've made and make it their own and do kind of what they would like with it. Will we do that in the future and kind of like make a book out of it? Maybe, hopefully. I'd like to. But I don't want that to stop people from trying to let a sister slip on some knuckle dusters and punch a shog off, because that the game will, in its current state, will allow you to do that. It will just be some slight tweaking on what's available to you depending on the time period.
Yeah, there's so much you can do with it too. I'd love to see a group of player character nuns run into like a group of cantankerous old Protestant priests, just waving at each other to get off of each other's lawns.
So, one of the final questions we have before we run this down: what advice would you give any aspiring TTRPG creators?
Ooh.
So
I've been asked this quite a lot at cons, because we do meet quite a lot of other designers and fledgling designers at cons. My advice would be, if you have a look at our history, is do as I say, not as I do. Do not start with a giant A4 like big book system like we did with Shiver. That's genuine madness. Don't do it. Like I think our road to that was very, very unique and quite weird, and a lot of it is partly because I think I'm a little bit insane. What I would generally advise people to do is, if you have a concept for a game, is think about like the tightest, most concise way that you could make that into something that somebody could play and do that. Whether that's a one-page like sheet of paper, whether it's written on a napkin, whether it is, just a sheet of A4 folded in half into a small 4-page booklet. Because as soon as you've got something that can be played, it can be enjoyed, it can be tested, it can give you feedback. Hell, if it's good enough, you can even sell it and start actually kind of making some funds kind of back towards kind of what you want to do. I'd also say as well, for like designers who are interested in designing in other people's space, like in terms of like looking at like OGLs, but also there's a lot of like game jams now emerging on itch.io that are based off of like kind of engine systems where they will give you their SRD. So this, it's just I'm talking in acronyms, a system reference document. So for anything that has an open games license, so an OGL, so this is Shiver does as well. We will develop one for Sisterhood as well. Kind of when we've got the full release, we want to make sure that pretty much with all of our games that we have that as an option. That the system reference document will basically allow you to look into kind of how that game ticks, and as long as you don't replicate those rules, you can and you kind of use them appropriately, you can make whatever you like. And quite often, like with ROGL for Shiver, you can sell it, make money off of it, and kind of start kind of getting your stamp on stuff as a designer, whilst having a mechanical foundation already there for you. So you don't have to generate, if you're wanting to kind of get into game design and writing your own adventures, you don't have to start by creating a big mad game engine where everything works and you know kind of how all the characters work. Try writing an adventure in somebody else's space. Try writing that one-page RPG. Keep it small, keep it tight, and keep it something that you can release easily. That most importantly, that people can play quickly and give you feedback, and you can actually start finding ways to improve as a designer.
Oh. I think that's it, isn't it? We've had people come up to us at conventions so often, and they're like, we've had people turn up with 400-page manuscripts where they're like, these are my mechanics for my game, and it's like, does it work? Have you play tested it? And the answer is no, we haven't. But it's 400 pages, it must work. And it's no, it doesn't. It's and start with it's. We've had other people come up and it's like, well, I'm 100 pages into my lore document, and it's like, I don't think people are gonna get into that. Frankly, if it's an original piece, they're not going to. The idea of the one-page RPG is something we do at Parable. We started doing it to fill out a Patreon, and then we found out it was just quite fun to do. Charlie really wanted to do a Weird West RPG, and I think this was back when we were still thinking A4 big book mentality, and you kept talking to me about it. I said, well, why don't you do it as a one-page? Can you do it as one page? Show us the world that you want to do. And you were like, I can't, but I could do it as like an 8-page zine. And we did release that. I am allowed to talk about it. How many bullets? Yeah.
So I wanted to do a Weird West, like an entire like book series, for example, and I was getting really excited about it. And Adam was the one who reminded me, minimum viable product, slice it down. And then I created Six in the Chamber, which is a little solo 8-page zine, which is you play an undead cowboy who was murdered by a group of 6 people who betrayed you. And the solo journaling game is about the story of the 6 bullets in your gun with the names engraved of the people that you're going to go kill who betrayed you and left you for dead, but didn't realise that you were going to come back as a zombie with a gun. And that was from a giant Weird West world that I had an idea for, with zombies and vampires and all sorts, but just very much took it down to, you are a dead cowboy who has been betrayed. What is your story of revenge? End. That's it. Because I think it's for we come from a film and TV background, so for us, when we've been told to pitch stuff or put stuff forward kind of into development, we had to do log lines where we only had 27 words to pitch something, or we're trained to pitch stuff in a minute for like in an elevator if you run into the right producer. And I think that is actually a really good ethos to take across into game design. is that generally with the amount of games out there, and generally where people's attention spans tend to be trending, that's kind of almost how you need to present your games, and need to present the concept lore and kind of like mechanics overview of your game. If someone can get it in a couple of minutes and be hooked, then they're in.
You absolutely. Yeah. It's respect your players' time. Like the board game industry's got it great because you can look at a box and you can kind of figure out what you're going to do with your evening. When a board game player looks at an RPG book, they're looking at homework. It's a big old book, and you're promising them that it's going to be fun, and it will be. Most likely, it will be fun, but the minimum viable product, the thing that's going to get them in, is a little slice of the world that's easy to kind of grasp, and that ultimately is it. Perfect that bit, and don't worry about your fan fiction of Dune that you're writing, your 600-page manifesto. I think that's the answer. It's brevity. It's not the fun, creative answer, because a lot of people. I mean, people have come to me at cons all the time, and they're like, "Oh, I want your job," and I'm like, "What do you think my job is?" And they're like, "Well, you're paid to write all day. Like Charlie's doing all the mechanics, and you get to tell him when he's done wrong, and then you get to write all the stories." And I'm like, "No, that's 30 to 40% of my job is that, and all of the rest is sales and technical, and it just gets." So the best advice I've ever given people is nurture your communities, because I have so many people coming to me saying I've got like this fully written game, and they've got like 20 people that are following them or that are interested in talking to them. It's like, well, encourage them, run tables with them, get them to run tables for you. Do that. Nurture your community, make sure the entrance to your world is quick and easy, and ultimately be prepared to have a day job. And learn from that day job. Don't berate it. I worked in retail for a very long time, and I worked in produce. And if you've ever tried to, sell squash or bok choy to a very small rural community who think that iceberg lettuce is a bit too foreign, then you are going to learn sales techniques that are translatable. And ultimately, you're not going to have the romanticized Stephen King of the tabletop sphere writing life. Not at all.
Yeah, because for full transparency, like with Parable, I was juggling other jobs for about kind of 2.5, 3 years.
3 years,
four,
at least,
4 years at least. like before we I mean, it was a good chunk after the end of our second Kickstarter, where Gothic did well, for Shiver, that I started having a conversation with my brother about moving into it full time. Was the thing, and that was after 2 pretty hefty Kickstarters for us that kind of came through. So it's the road there can be long in terms of kind of making it a living, but I completely agree with Adam. It's like there is a lot of value kind of in the other jobs that you kind of may be keeping, as well as like find the moments there that are inspiring. You'd be amazed at the amount of game mechanics, characters, and story that you can find from working in the produce aisle at Morrison's. Or I used to work in education, and some of the characters you had met with teachers, students, parents. I also worked in the centre of Nottingham, which is a whole other kettle of fish in its own right. It's these basically don't kind of turn away and scorn the world that you're kind of living and working in, because actually that's one of the biggest sources of inspiration. If you turn off of that and retreat kind of just into your own world that you're building, and I think this is something I found when people send us manuscripts as well, is that it lacks that touch, because there's a full rejection of everything outside, when actually it's the stuff that outside that makes people relate to your work.
Makes sense.
Yeah, we got really practical and really philosophical there, so I'm sorry about that.
Yeah,
just a bit that hit hard.
Yeah.
Wow.
So to just finish off here, where can folks find you?
So you can find us at Games Parable on X, Jesus Christ, Twitter, whatever it's called. We are. You can search Parable Games, Shiver RPG on Facebook. as well. We have our website, www.parablegames.co.uk. Adam, if you search Parable Games on Blue Sky, you're more a favour with Blue Sky. I still need to make one.
You can get us on Blue Sky. You can get us on X. You can get us on Facebook. Everywhere. Charlie's just said. We have a Discord as well, a very friendly place, which is a merger of all of our gaming communities. And you can find us in person at conventions. There was a year Charlie and I did 39 conventions. We worked it out. I spent more weekends in a hotel room with him around England than I did with my fiance. We don't do that anymore, but we are going to be at Comic-Con May. We're going to be at UK Games Expo. UK Games Expo, do come along, and we're running our first ever multi-table Epic of Shiver. Come and survive the recruitment gauntlet for a very terrible company that, as Charlie has already kind of alluded to, is definitely based on a job we used to have. So you can learn how that our advice kind of works in practice. But yeah, we're on all of the social media. Almost, I don't know. I feel like there's a million. Ben's on Instagram. Go get Ben Alexander. Alexander Draws, our artist. He's the best one to follow. Forget marketing. Just go look at what Ben does.
Well, thank you very much, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. This is a Pint of Cthulhu signing off, and goodbye.
Thank you for having us. Goodbye. I don't know. Is there a camera? What is it?
I just realised I waved and I didn't say goodbye.
Yeah.
Goodbye, everyone.